Hey there! Here I am with another Godzilla review. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 18th movie in the series, 1991's Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah, or Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. And can we just pause for a second to appreciate this poster art? That's one thing that's great about the Heisei era. These movies have some striking poster designs. I didn't have any idea what to expect from this movie until my most recent review of Godzilla vs. Biollante, when a couple of you said something in the comments like, "Whoa, you thought this movie was kinda wacky. Wait till you see the next one." That's the kind of encouragement I like to hear. So this is a time travel story. That's new. Three individuals from the year 2204 use a flying saucer to travel back in time, to the early 90s, with a warning that Godzilla's going to come and create a nuclear catastrophe that will destroy the world. To prevent this disaster and save Japan's very existence, they have a plan to bring a delegation from the present, made up of a writer, a dinosaur expert, and that ESP girl from the last movie, and go back in time to 1944. This movie develops an origin story for Godzilla. I know, 18 movies in and now we're getting a more specific explanation. They figure out that Godzilla was originally a dinosaur living in peace on Lagos Island. During World War II, this dinosaur rescued some Japanese soldiers by killing an invading force of Americans. 10 years later, this dinosaur was affected by the hydrogen bomb testing in the Pacific and transformed into Godzilla. This is an interesting idea. I'll buy it. So they go back in time, teleporting the dinosaur out so he won't get turned into Godzilla and destroy the planet, but uh-oh, something else gets left behind, and back in the present they suddenly have King Ghidorah on their hands, doing just as much damage as Godzilla would have done, if not more, so of course they need to bring Godzilla back to fight him off. So, as I've learned is usually the case in the Godzilla franchise, there's a lot of stuff going on in this movie. There's time travel, flying saucers, shocking betrayals that maybe aren't so shocking, cute little critters called Dorats. I'm not totally sure that I followed every twist and turn in the plot. We had to watch the dubbed version of this one, which, if you've watched certain previous Godzilla reviews of mine, you know is not my preference, but I did hope that maybe it would make it easier to follow certain plot points. Japanese is a vast language, and I often struggle to keep up with the subtitles as they whiz by in scenes that have a lot of dialogue, a lot of exposition, multiple people talking. So if the dialogue is dubbed, and I don't have to read anything, hypothetically, that should make it easier to follow along, right? Well, I was wrong about that. The movie still keeps a very brisk pace, and even without having to read it, it was still difficult to keep track of what was going on. But I did my best, and I have learned that it's better if I collect clips for the review before I actually film the review, so that I can kind of rewatch the movie in sections, and that does help clarify things. There are a few familiar faces in prominent roles here. One is Megumi Odaka from Godzilla vs. Biollante, returning in the role of Miki, the psychic girl who can sense the kaiju through ESP. She's the first recurring human character in the franchise, and appears in all 6 Heisei Godzilla films. There's also Katsuhiko Sasaki, who starred in Godzilla vs. Megalon and Terror of Mechagodzilla, and here plays a dinosaur expert. And there's Yoshio Tsuchiya, who I honestly didn't recognize, even though he's credited as being in 5 Godzilla films. That's probably because, number 1, he aged, and number 2, his most prominent role in the franchise up to this point was as the alien leader in Invasion of the Astro Monster, where his face was partially covered, and I was distracted by the funny outfits anyway. Here he plays Shindo, a powerful businessman with mysterious ties to Godzilla. His interaction with the monster at the end, which is not straightforward in its meaning, is one of the most intriguing scenes of the movie. I think this is the first time in a Godzilla movie that I've heard a direct reference to Japan fighting the United States in World War II. Apparently, the movie drew some controversy at the time of its release because it was considered by some to be anti-American. I can see why. There's the obvious thing, of course, the fact that the dinosaur, Godzillasaurus, seems to favor the Japanese soldiers and obligingly mows down all the American soldiers for them. The Japanese soldiers also appear more mature and organized and behave nobly toward the dinosaur, while the American troops seem disorderly and kinda dumb. Also, the script is terrible, and their acting is pretty bad too. Or at least it seems that way.
Got him! Take that, you dinosaur!
Allegedly, the actors in these scenes were extras pulled from local US military bases, so they're not really actors at all. But the dubbing doesn't help either.
Yeah, it looks like that island needs scientists more than it needs American military people.
There are quite a few strange moments on the dubbing track, some line readings that I would have said, "Hey, you want to try going over that part again?"
So just what? Was this dinosaur to him anyway?
The result is unfortunately awkward and distracting, which just makes the whole thing seem laughable, which I don't think was their intent. There certainly are a lot of American cultural references, verbal mentions, at least in the English dubbed version, maybe not in the Japanese script, of Steven Spielberg, Peter Arnett, someone quotes Dirty Harry. There are visual things too. The time travel effects reminded me of those in Star Trek IV, and the smaller shuttle they use to fly back in time vaguely resembles a Klingon bird of prey. M11 the android, yes, there's also an android in this movie, reminded me at times of Data from Star Trek The Next Generation, of the androids in Alien and Aliens, and of the Terminator. Well, the Terminator and the T-1000, but I don't know if there was any influence there. Terminator 2 came out in early July, this movie came out in December. Akira Ifukube is back with an original score, his first for a Godzilla movie since Terror of Mechagodzilla, and he'll be on board for the rest of the Heisei movies, with the exception of Godzilla vs. Space Godzilla. There's some good music here, a blend of old and new musical themes. I especially like the creepy music at the beginning. Not that it's pleasant to listen to at all, but it's very effective. Murky images of King Ghidorah's corpse on the ocean floor are accompanied by a discordant banging on the low, freaky end of a piano. There is one odd music cue, though, the harp that accompanies Godzilla's big entrance. Not sure about that musical choice. It seems more fitting for Tchaikovsky's Swan Lake than for Godzilla. My opinion of the new Godzilla look that I expressed in the Godzilla vs. Biollante review still stands here. I really like the head design. The close-up shots of Godzilla above the shoulders are great. Those pecs, though... At least this movie provides an explanation for Godzilla's beefed-up thighs and chest. This time around, he gets reborn with modern nuclear weapons, so he's bigger and more powerful now than he was before. And the bulk does convey all that. But it also makes him look like he might have gone overboard with the steroids. This is the first movie where Godzilla is left to fight King Ghidorah by himself, so that's different. A good way to up the stakes, as Godzilla has never been able to defeat him on his own. And it is a savage fight with some strangulation, resulting in foaming at the mouth and a retaliatory decapitation. Yay! I do think a lot of the footage of King Ghidorah, especially the city destruction sequences, felt pretty familiar. I found myself thinking that I'd seen all this before in the 60s movies. King Ghidorah is cool and a big fan favorite. He was chosen to be Godzilla's foe in this movie by popular vote, but he also seems to be a cumbersome kaiju to manage, so I think there's only so much they can have him do. I do like the improvements they made. They tweaked the design of his 3 heads, updated the effects on his laser beams, and did some cool stuff with his shadow as he flies overhead. But truth be told, I was feeling a trifle underwhelmed by King Ghidorah's presence and the movie in general. Until the very end. Spoilers! Spoilers! Don't watch this if you don't want to know what happens in the big fight at the end. The last part, the final showdown between Godzilla and King Ghidorah, is what saves the movie for me. The appearance of Mecha King Ghidorah was an awesome surprise, for me and for the characters watching the fight apparently. It's a clever move, the design is cool, it's a smart way to take your kaiju to the next level, and the whole sequence is very well filmed. Plus, it was an interesting touch to have this giant mechanized kaiju being controlled on the inside by the girl from the future. So overall, while the rest of the movie has its ups and downs, the ending is great. Possibly one of the best ones yet. Okay, those are my thoughts on Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah. I hope you enjoyed the review, and stay tuned because the DVD we got this on was actually a double feature. So my review of the next movie in the series, Godzilla and Mothra: The Battle for Earth, will actually be coming in just a few days. So stay tuned for that. In the meantime, let me know what you thought of this movie, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.